Hello, you're watching Encore. Coming up in today's music show, Radiohead is back with a moon-shaped pool. The group's 9th studio album strikes a melancholy chord and sees their sound evolving. It's time for that yearly musical battle as countries competing in the Eurovision Song Contest go head-to-head for top points. And Rashan Ahmed's in the studio bringing us his brand of hip-hop, fresh from the West Coast, just in time for a new festival here in Paris. Our music critic Mark Thompson is with us today. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Olivia.
And Rashan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you're here as part of a Paris-New York festival, which is a first here for Paris, with your new EP, Above the Clouds, as well. We'll be talking about that in just a minute. But we're starting with a new release. Radiohead, of course, new record after 5 years. Are you a fan?
Definitely. We were actually talking a little bit earlier about artists who I think transcend. Radiohead is actually, I left them out. They're an artist who I think that this is huge.
Okay, so it was a big weekend for listening to new music for you. Before we go through the record in detail, let's take a look at the new Radiohead single. This is Daydreaming.
They never learn. They never learn. Beyond the point of no return. Of no.
And that video, of course, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, no less, only the big names for Radiohead. Now, the members of the group have been pursuing solo projects in the last few years. Did you feel that came through on the album?
Well, I've got to be very careful what I say because Radiohead fans are notoriously very fanatical and somewhat obsessive about their band, and it is their band, including our show's producer, of course.
And presenter.
And Tom York has been working on his own solo projects as well as Atoms for Peace, and Johnny Greenwood's been working with Paul Thomas Anderson on a number of movie soundtracks like There Will Be Blood. And actually, I think it would be very easy to have quite a disjointed album when you've all been working on your solo projects and you come back together. But what's actually helped is Johnny Greenwood having these very expansive sounds now. And we've had glimpses of it before in some of their previous records. But this time, it really is the focus of the record for me. Well, this atmospheric sound is very contemplative, very ambient. And of course, like most Radiohead albums, it's the kind of album where you're going to need 3 or 4 listens to really love it and get into it. But this is probably one of the more accessible records for quite some time. The only real downside for fans is there are a number of songs on this album that we have encountered before. They've played a lot of them live, including True Love Waits, which has been around for about 20 years now.
Now, it was released at the weekend. It created a bit of an internet event, a lot of buzz, not unlike Beyonce's Lemonade, of course. Rashan, what do you think about this whole virtual release in terms of, streaming versus perhaps more old-fashioned approach to getting records out there?
I absolutely love it. I wish I could do it. It seems like it's something not as much for independent artists just because it seems like it takes a lot of money to make these videos and make people actually care. But the process of watching it makes a whole new experience. I love watching Beyonce's Lemonade, and I like Beyonce as much as everyone else, but it made me like fall in love with it a lot more.
Yeah, it's more collaborative, I think, perhaps. Now, in terms of subject matter, Radiohead and Tom York in particular, they don't shy away from politics and big social issues. Is that a continuum in this record?
Yes, there are definitely mentions of environmental devastation and what they call mass thoughtlessness. I think one of the songs that people have focused on a lot is Burn the Witch. Let's have a look at this first clip.
Since I'm a sixpence that goes
people have been reading a lot into this song, saying that it's about refugees in Europe, or it's about Donald Trump even. But again, this song has been around for about 10, 15 years. They've been playing it live, and they've basically been waiting for the right album to put it on. They've been waiting for an album they could focus on strings and get some orchestration behind it. So it does seem like the right song at the right time on the right album, and a lot of coincidences. But I think people are just mainly reading into it a bit too much, maybe.
All art imitating life, perhaps. Now, we're moving back to France here. Another new release is Kristoff Mai. This is his 4th record. All of his previous records went to #1. Do you think he'll be continuing on that successful streak?
Well, as you say, someone who's just hugely successful in the Francophone world. All of his records are #1 in both France and Belgium, but it's never really made it outside of the borders. I have to say that I've never been a huge fan of his work. It seems a bit too generic for me, and I think that's the problem is for an Anglophone audience who's looking for something a bit different from a singer in a foreign language, and I don't really get that here. It seems like it's been done before, and it's been done maybe a bit better. That said, here is a guaranteed hit, pretty much. The focus is on, the title translates as Dreamcatcher, and this is based on a dreamcatcher that his son brought back from school. And because of that, he's focused in on this, and it's quite a more introspective and personal record than we've seen from him before. But that is also partly of growing old now. It's not his first record, it's his 4th album, and he wants the world to know a bit more about him. But at the same time, I don't really feel that I'm that invested in him as an artist, so I'll be moving on quite quickly.
Okay, moving on from Kristoff Mai there. Now we're moving on to live music, and the festival season here in France is already in full swing. This week sees the first ever Paris-New York Music Festival with a focus on African American and Latin American artists, including you, Rashan Ahmed. You've just released your new EP, that's called Above the Clouds. Let's get a taste of your style with one of your earlier records. This is Pain on Black.
I'm the coal in the fire, scream God mercy, how I provide, and I ain't been thirsty since. Life be my evidence, sometimes so tense under false pretense, been wrong. That's why I sing in my songs about love and the path towards redemption. He transformed to the floor, you see, just a man trying to live out my prophecy and get profit and some brand new kicks and a fly new whip, but it's all so sick. The ultimate.
Now, listening to your stuff, I detect a bit of inspiration perhaps from early 80s, 90s hip-hop, that may be what you might call the golden age.
Definitely.
What is so special about that time for you?
I grew up in Los Angeles, California, and during that time it was a big political, social movement that was happening. Growing up as African American, my history started at slavery, right? And so once I started, as far as in what I was being taught in school, like that's where the history book started. When I started hearing Public Enemy say "Fight the Power" and KRS-One say "You Must Learn" and NWA saying "F the Police," after watching what's happening in my neighborhood, it was just really empowering. I always wanted to be the kind of artist that not only made people dance, but actually said something in their lyrics. So,
well, there were these political elements in those songs, but there was also very positive vibes and positive messages. Is that something that you've looked to carry through in your own work?
Without a doubt. I wish I could remember who said, "If I can't dance, I don't want to be a part of your revolution." And that seems to be I love that sentiment. So definitely, I want people to party, people dance, have a good time, and then after you leave, you're singing "Give Thanks" or you're singing something upbeat. Yeah.
And you're now recording your new record here in Paris. How does that change? Like, how is it recording in a foreign country with different producers, different musicians?
Yeah, it's been beautiful actually. I'm actually finishing up here, but my new record is called Small World, and it's actually a collaboration with French artists, with African artists, with South American artists. So I've been recording it over the last 3 years around the world, and I'm finishing it here in Paris. It's one of my favorite cities. So it makes me think different, makes me write different, and I'm just loving the process.
And you released your latest EP last month, so you're obviously very busy writing.
Yes.
And that included a few cameos, notably from an MC from Farside, who I absolutely love.
Nice.
That introduced me to hip-hop, really.
Sweet.
How did that collaboration come about?
It's some kid Trey from the Farside. He's actually a good friend of mine, actually. I met him through mutual friends a while ago, and we've done shows together, we've toured, and he's kind of been like kind of a real mentor to me, someone I can call, and if I have some questions on what I should do, how I should approach a situation, I call him, and he's just a good guy, yeah.
And you've also been part of the Crown City Rockers group for quite a while. Does it change when you're writing solo to writing as part of a group? How is that different?
Absolutely. It depends on what the instrumental is saying to me. I heard one of my favorite MCs, a guy named Rakim, and he would say he'd sit at the speakers and translate what the melody or what the tones were saying. And, you know, depending on where I am, I really take the energy from the place that I am. And I've been traveling so much that now my inspiration is just outside of the U.S. where I'm located, and it's inspiration from all that I see and what I hear. So it's been really, really cool.
Definitely a cosmopolitan sound there.
Yeah, for sure.
Now we're moving to something a little bit cosmopolitan too. We're finishing with an important vote in the world of music. Now people might be talking about the future of the UK and the EU, the referendum, all that kind of thing. But I think you'll agree, Mark, that the only vote in Europe that really counts this week is the Eurovision Song Contest.
This week, yes, but please, people do in the UK do go out and vote. This one, the vote matters a little less. It's Europe's favourite cheese fest, the Eurovision. It's in Stockholm. France is looking to win for its first time since 1977. The French entry is by a singer called Amir Haddad, who came third in the French version of The Voice back in 2014. Now, there are a lot of similarities here in this song that we have seen in other singles that have done well in this competition. He sings the verses in French, but the chorus is very sing-along friendly in English. It starts off quite slow and it builds up. And the critics are saying that it's in with a chance of ending near the top, but Russia is actually where the smart money is going into this competition.
Good tip. Thank you very much, Mark, for being with us. And thank you, Rashan, for joining us today. We'll leave you with the French entry for Eurovision from Amir. Remember, you can get more news on our website. Don't forget to check out Encore on social media too. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Reporters. For months now, Israel has faced an unprecedented wave of violence. Knife and firearm attacks are an almost daily occurrence. In Hebron, where people live under the constant surveillance of Israeli soldiers, there is permanent tension. Carried out by lone individuals with no apparent coordination, the attacks are unlike the mass revolts of the previous two intifadas. They point to a growing discontent, especially among young Palestinians who claim they have nothing to lose.
Reporters on France 24 and France24.com. Live from Paris.
Join us at France 24 to keep in touch with the day's news across the world. At 1 p.m. Paris time, we bring you the top stories together with expert analysis and in-depth reports. For a different take on the news, live from Paris.
Live from Paris, your rendezvous with the world, right here on France 24.